Welcome everyone to the Tethys Shipyard. I am Takeshi Yamato, the Yard Master, joining our host, the Housecoat Gamer.
Yo.
Today we are covering two Klingon birds of prey, the Von Tok class, and the Tuyuk exploratory ship. The Tuyuk is basically a variant of the Von Tok, so we are just going to use the Von Tok imagery for both ships. Now, Ron is usually the one to deliver most of the lore, but these ships are statted in the core rulebook for Star Trek Adventures with their own lore. We've basically done touch ups using Utopia Planitia rules for our sheets. So I'm going to read the overview and maybe the capabilities for the Von Tok. Then Ron will provide his commentary and potential alterations. And then we will do the same with the Tuyuk. So, Von Tok overview. The Von Tok entered service in 2149. Overview. The late 2140s saw a renaissance in the engineering of warp coils for the Empire. Soon after the warp propulsion systems were finalized for the D5, it was discovered that an asymmetrical warp field could be produced and sustained using pulsed energy inputs to a layer of warp coils rather than just a continuous input of energy to two sets of parallel coils. While this could give a starship improved stability while at warp, it required a system that could adjust coil placement up to 25% of a vessel's longest axis. In order to accomplish this, engineers from House Antak took the lead in designing an adjustable warp wing that contained the warp coils and could move independently from the primary hull of the starship. The starship designed to first use this new warp wing system was the Von Tok class, which became the first of many vessels that outside observers would call bird of prey type starships. The Von Tok class only saw frontline starships until the first decade of the 23rd century, when it was determined that other vessels were more admirably filling the role of fast interceptor, and the vessels could be quickly refit into the later designed Tuyuk class. The Von Tok class would continue service in the vessel fleets of the Great Houses, acting as couriers and heavy ground attack vessels until late in the 23rd century. Capabilities. Compared to the other similarly sized starships of its time, the Von Tok class has a smaller crew complement, as there are fewer weapons emplacements than the D5, and it has fewer positions for scientific specialists than the Raptor. However, this class requires nearly twice the number of engineers trained in warp core operations and the maintenance of subspace field coils due to the complex warp wing systems. As the starship moves into warp, the wings adjust their pitch and angle, and the main computer adjusts the pulses of warp plasma to specific coils to produce a highly stable warp field. These multiple small warp coils allow this class to achieve speeds of warp 6.15, and even if the vessel lost over half the warp coils in each wing, it still is able to form a stable subspace field able to enter and exit warp. In 2167, one starship of this class had sustained damage to over 60% of its warp coils from an encounter with an Andorian crewed Starfleet vessel and was still able to return to Kronos at a speed of warp 3.2. Engineers felt they could remove half the fusion reactors as the vessel massed lower than other vessels of its size, but the warriors of the KDF fought, literally, to keep the extra impulse power installed. This was because the impulse deck also used magnetic baffles to direct thrust up to 30 degrees from the axis of the ship, augmenting the vessel's reaction control systems and making the Von Tok one of the most nimble vessels in service to the Empire at the time. As a historical note, this class was also the first in the KDF to have each vessel equipped with a new tractor beam system, using a subspace field to direct and polarize gravitons. Alright, Ron, you're up for the Von Tok.
When the ship was introduced, the vessel was designed to fulfill two roles. One, heavy scouting and commerce raiding, and to provide something that was far less overkill than anything much larger, as even a Somra class Raptor was a little too much for some situations. Of course, the Von Talk's influence on the Empire was more long-term than anything else. After all, when the ship's designers and their successors would later turn the Von Talk design into some new, utilizing newer technologies such as duotronic computers stolen from the Federation, and eventually coming up with the ultimate bird of prey that just won't go away.
Yes, the Burrell, but that's another vid. Now, the book stats are Comm 6, Computer 6, Engines 8, Sensors 7, Structure 6, Weapons 7 for systems. Departments are 1 point each in Con, Security, and Engineering. Scale 3, Disruptor Cannons, Photon Torpedoes, Strength 2 Tractor Beam, Improved Reaction Control System, and Redundant Systems Warp Drive. Descriptor traits of Klingon Starship and Bird of Prey. Our version, the Utopia Planitia touch-up version, is mostly the same, but we've shaved off a few points to get it to bring it down to point totals for the 2150s, or for a scale 3 ship in the 2150s, aka 34 points. So we have comms 5, computers 5, engines 7, sensors 6, structure 5, weapons 6. Other than that, it's mostly the same, though redundant systems has just been changed to engines generically. Because, yeah, it does have the warp wing, but those things on the top of the pod could be considered warp nacelles. Or they could be considered the impulse engines, I don't know. But this was the first ship to utilize the warp wing technology, so it would make sense that they would have conventional backups. Anyway,
Klingons may not be the smartest knives and the sharpest knives in the drawer, but they're not stupid.
Yeah. Next up is the Tuyuk, which is a variant, which is basically a variant of the Von Tak. Entered service in 2176. Overview. Research and development of new technologies has rarely been the priority of the Klingon Defense Force, and has been left to civilian research teams and institutions of education. After the formation of the United Federation of Planets and its rapid expansion towards Kronos, the High Council felt that the exploration duties of the KDF should be expanded in order to push the frontiers of the Empire further than just conquest could achieve. Designing the new Starship class was a group of academics from across Kronos and overseen by 2 generals from the KDF to ensure the new vessel would still bring honor to the Empire. The result was the Tuyuk class exploratory ship. To ensure the ease of construction and maintenance once launched, the academic group responsible for the vessel based the design heavily on the Von Tak class bird of prey. Equipment and dry dock facilities for the other birds of prey currently in service were utilized almost immediately for construction, and the first space frame was commissioned in 2176. As more combat starships came out of the dry docks of the Empire, many of the great houses began refitting their older Von Tak class starships to be used as Tuyuk explorers, beginning in the late 2190s, as the older birds of prey started showing their age. These refits were simple enough that crews could accomplish the work even on planetary surfaces or rudimentary dry docks. These vessels would almost entirely replace the older Von Tak class birds of prey by the second decade of the 23rd century in the KDF, and most fleets of the great houses, and would see active service until their eventual obsolescence in the late 2290s. Capabilities. The Tuyuk-class explorer closely resembles the Von Tok class that it is based upon, with a long and narrow primary hull and two wings to port and starboard that contain the vessel's warp coils and end with disruptor cannons. The wings themselves are vastly different from its parent class, being almost twice as long and half as much again broad. The wings required redesign as the vessel utilized a new system of larger but more energy efficient warp coils. Additionally, four separate sensor blisters on the far ventral and dorsal side of each wing gave the class excellent sensor capabilities using interferometry. At the root of each wing was a computer core, the most complex produced in the Empire until the introduction of duotronics in the early 2250s. As these sensor blisters were located in a similar area to the colored spots of the carnivorous blood eye moth of Kronos, many crew painted the wings and blisters in a similar pattern, giving this class the nickname of Blood Moth. The engineering hull, after the boom-like neck of the vessel, consisted of a similar layout and systems as the Von Tok class. Additional deuterium storage on the port and starboard of the impulse deck allowed this class extended deployment times. Finally, two small one-person shuttle pods were installed on the port and starboard sides of the boom, allowing small excursions to the surface of worlds when the commander considered the landing of the vessel a tactical liability. Refits of this class occurred after the successful reverse engineering of Federation duotronic computer systems and gave a new lease on life to these aging vessels. Further refits would go on to improve the vessel's warp capabilities and sensor resolution. Alright, Ron, your go.
With the Federation's massive expansion, the Klingons needed to up their game. And that's an understatement. Because while the Federation expanded rapidly, perhaps too rapidly for Starfleet to keep up to a point that, well, wouldn't exactly be rivaled until the 24th century,
Yep.
the Klingons knew they could not afford to slow down. Because while they were not the most technologically advanced power in the quadrant anymore, that particular honor went to the Federation thanks to the Vulcan Science Academy joining its scientific prowess. The Klingons decided to, well, send out explorers. Because sometimes the greatest enemy is the unknown. And what better honor is there than to face this enemy and stab it in the face? So many new worlds were discovered, conquered, and claimed for the Empire. At least until the Federation and Klingon ships decided to engage in some skirmishing, shall we say. Skirmishing that the Klingons did not exactly come out of smelling like roses. For example, during the infamous Triton incident, where several vessels, where four vessels, two of which were actually Tuyuk class, while others were D5s, engaged a single Federation heavy cruiser. And all of them got their asses handed to them. While this also signaled the Federation was a worthy foe for the Empire, it also signaled that they were very much undergunned compared to this unholy monster.
Yes, this would probably lead to the development of the D7, but that's another vid. Anyway, stats for the Tuyuk. Again, original book versus our Utopia Planitia touch-ups. Original book, Klingon Starship, Bird of Prey. Systems values are Comm 7, Computers 8, Engines 7, Sensors 7, Structure 5, Weapons 7. Department modifiers, 1 point each, Security, Science, and Medicine. Weapon, Scale 3. Weapons are disruptor cannons, photon torpedoes, Strength 2 tractor beam, has high-resolution sensors, and improved power systems. Our version is basically the same thing. We just toned the points down a bit to match proper point totals for the 2170s. For a scale 3 starship, that would be 36 points, 37 minus 1. So we dropped it to Com 6, Computer 7, Engine 6, Sensor 6, Structure 5, Weapons 6. Again, other than that, again, department values, scale, weapons, talents, and descriptor traits are basically the same. And that was the Von Tak and Tuyuk.
Pretty little boats.
Yeah, the first Klingon birds of prey.
Though we may touch up on the non-canon but very logical Kite class, which is a Romulan bird of prey that is more or less just a, well, Burrell with a short neck and no disruptor cannons.
Yeah, we've already done a vid on that, but we might do a touch-up vid on that at some point.
Because it makes sense. The Romulan steal technology from the Klingons steal technology from the Romulans. It's a vicious cycle of theft. Oh my god, it's the Blood Ravens all over again.
Lock the reliquaries!
Too late! They've even stolen the reliquary itself! Bye-bye.